Good afternoon YouTube, welcome back to Try or Die Garage. First day back in the garage for a couple of days. I've done quite a bit of stuff, or I've tried to do quite a bit of stuff since I last recorded anything. Basically still working on the rear wheels, still trying to figure it out, and also trying to break down the front end, so remove the front wheel so that I can send it for powder coating. But today what I thought I would do is try and do a first start on the bike. So I haven't started it, it hasn't run since I got it. I did put a battery in and it does turn over, but that's basically all I've done. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get the plugs out. I'm going to put some lubricant down in the barrels, so it's been sitting, it's also been drained of oil. I've put fresh oil in and I've put a fresh filter in, and I didn't film it because I just YouTube forgot. I don't know, I'm just used to working on my bikes, not used to filming stuff. So what we'll do is get the plugs out and I will fill the barrels up, not fill them up, I'll inject a little bit of oil in the top end, and then start turning it over a bit. So I'm going to get the plugs out. Let's turn it over a bit. It does sound really healthy, so I'm going to put the plugs back in. I think it does concern me a bit about this is the right, we've got fuel flowing into the carbs. Huh. That did not sound good. Alright, well, I've got fuel pouring out of the carbs. That's not good. And I didn't like the sound of that clunk. if you're watching this, this is kind of halfway through a video that I started called First Start, and basically the plan was to do a first start on the bike. The bike had not been run since 2019, I think, and the plan was to, yeah, just see if it would start. I got some fuel, changed the oil, changed the filter, checked the spark, had spark, everything seemed to be working fine, and as you'll see in the video, I opened the fuel up from the remote tank and tried to start it, and it didn't even do a full revolution. It did perhaps half a revolution and just went clonk, which is a bad fucking sign. So I stopped the video, took the carbs off, and noticed that there was fuel pissing out the carbs from somewhere, specifically carb number 2, or on cylinder number 2, which interestingly enough in the drain plug in the carb is the only carb with basically a random stainless steel Allen head. All the other are either uniform or original bolts. They've clearly been cleaned at some point. I mean, they are spotless inside. So yeah, tried to start it, didn't even turn over, went clonk. As soon as I heard that sound, I thought, yeah, it's definitely hydrolocked. So I took the carbs off and took all the spark plugs out and turned the bike over, and literally got splashed in the face with loads of fuel from the number 2 cylinder. So basically, as soon as I opened a remote tank, the fuel just started pouring through into the cylinder. So to me, bearing in mind, as I've said before, I'm no expert, that indicates that probably either the float is stuck open, or the needle and seat, or maybe somebody hasn't put the needle back in. Whatever the case might be, it was clear that the fuel was just running straight into the cylinder. So yeah, as I said, I switched off the video, threw my toys out the fucking cot, as I do, and started working on something else. The other thing that I did do with the bike is I did a compression test. I thought what I might actually do is I will just replicate it with you guys. I don't know if anybody's ever done compression tests before. I won't make the assumption you have. Until a year ago, I'd never done one, and frankly didn't have a fucking clue what they meant by a compression test. But I bought one of these. It's just a cheap kit about a year ago for another project, and I thought I would check the compression after that little hydrolock. Good news is that it was even across all 4 cylinders. So yes, I know you're supposed to do it when the bike is warm. I did not, because I didn't manage to start the bike. But what I'm going to do is I'll just show you. So the reading I got across all 4 cylinders was basically 125. Now, warm, the bike should be running at around 140, 150. So that's when it's warm. Obviously, mine couldn't be warm, so it's going to be cold. But let's have a look and see if, yeah, it's still going to be at 125. Yeah, well, that's gone down to about 110 on that cylinder. I think it's because previously I had a little bit of WD-40 sprayed in all of the cylinders. So maybe, let me just do that. And that should, because bearing in mind that when the rotor's running hot, the metal is going to be expanding, but also there's going to be lubrication in the actual barrels. And one of the things that happens when a bike sits for a long time is you get basically when a bike sits for a while, the cylinders get dry, and any lubrication that was let's try that again. Yeah, 125, bang on. All the other cylinders will 125, bang on. Yes, it's low, but it is cold. And the other thing is that they are even. And I've had bikes before where you've had 10, 15, 20 psi difference between the cylinders. And that just means if the bike has been sitting a long time, which basically all my projects when I bought them, they have all been sitting for a long time, because those are the bikes that I can afford. The cylinders get dry, but also rings get stuck. You know, when you're on the forums and you're asking for advice, you know, the moment you start talking about compression and doing compression tests, and you talk about disparities between cylinders and low figures, everybody's got an opinion on it. Oh, the bike's trash, it needs a rebuild. I've had a CBR 600R that had 30 psi difference between the lowest and the highest cylinder, and neither of them, or none of them, were really running that great. Basically I did a light rebuild on the bike, cleaned the carbs, got the bike running again, changed the oil, and literally within, you know, a weekend of riding it, all of the cylinders had come back round. So the oil rings and the rings had loosened up, and when I tested it, I think it was 10 psi on each cylinder below the max of the manufacturer's spec. So old bikes, you know, things dry out, things become stuck. Give them a chance to come back round. You know, we're not talking about a 2020 hand-built Ducati. We're talking about old Jap bikes for the most part. And they take a lot of abuse, and it takes a lot of abuse to actually kill these motors. Doesn't matter who the manufacturer is, it takes a lot of abuse. And if the bike runs well, sounds good, and is a great bike, frankly, who gives a fuck what the pressure is in each cylinder? Certainly I don't. So I'm going to put the carbs on the bench and attach them to the, let's have a look. Yeah, attach them to the remote tank, and let's see what happens when you open the fuel tap. No, I've just got to find where I put the fucking remote tank. Normally it's hanging up. Oh, here it is. There we go. I'm just going to put it there. So the one thing I did want to show you is look how clean that is on the inside of the bores there. I don't know if you can see, but the carbs themselves, you know, I've had carbs which are literally black and manky, and just don't seem, yeah, that seemed completely rubbish. So let me open this tap now and see exactly what happens. Whoa! So basically, fuck, I'm an idiot. Oh man, I'm an idiot. A complete fucking idiot. So you have just witnessed my fucking idiocy in all its glory on YouTube. So if there's anybody watching this ever, do you see what I just did? I'll tell you what I just did. I put the oh, this is hilarious. I put the attached, so when the bike, the, yeah, when when the so he spotted the mistake that I made. So when I had the carbs on the bike and I was attaching the remote fuel tank, basically I used the only rubber hose on the carbs that there was. So I didn't really look, I didn't really check. I just felt around underneath in the bike frame, found the only rubber hose that there was on the bike, connected the fuel tank to it, and opened the fuel tap. So when I took it off the bike, and I've tested it just now, I've noticed that the fuel line that I attached the remote fuel tank to isn't actually a fuel line. It is a vacuum line, and it goes straight into the port on carb number 2, cylinder number 2. So as soon as I opened the tap, the fuel just gushed straight into the cylinder. I'll show you that so you can see. That is basically what I attached the fuel to, and of course the outlet to that is right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some fuel line on this, grease up the mouths of the carb, put them back on the bike, and we'll have another go at starting the bike. So have the carbs back on the bike. You can see that, so easy to put in, so much room, plenty of other bikes. Getting the carbs on is a pain in the arse. I have had a look at the airbox, and the airbox kind of goes there and underneath the seat, so God knows how you get that. Yeah, no idea how you're supposed to get that into the bike frame. But what I'm going to do now is I am just going to put I've put a little bit of WD-40 down each of the bores. I'm just going to give the bike a little turnover. Just to make sure that the bores are nice and oiled. Let me put the plugs in. So let me mount up the fuel tank, the remote tank. Just trying to think of where is the oh, bloody hell. Oh dear. Right. So the fuel hose that I put on has fallen off. So remote fuel line, I've got it all plugged in down at the bottom, carbs are on, plugs are in. Let's turn the bike on. Open the fuel. Just hope it doesn't start pissing out from somewhere. Yeah, it's leaking. It's leaking out of like fucking everywhere. Right, it's literally gushing out of the carbs. So I'm going to go with float bowls. Let's see. Right. Well, it certainly barked. So, do I have the firing order wrong? Let's have a look. Are the coils marked? Doesn't look like it. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they aren't. Let's give this another go. Right. Backfiring, too much fuel. The float bowls are flooding, so I think, let me just give it one more try. No. Well, that's clearly not working. So I think I'm going to have to take the carbs off and check out the needle and seats and see. Yeah, because the fuel was literally just pouring out. It was pouring out the vents and the vacuum and the overflow. So let's get the carbs undone. So, managed to get the bike running. Cylinder number 3. Cylinder number 3 is not great, and it's very floaty. So, not sounding brilliant, but it runs. And there's no major noise coming from the engine, so I suspect with a bit of a carb rebuild and some fettling it will be fine.